Welcome to today's presentation, where we have the pleasure to present Embla Medical. To help us through today's presentation, we are joined by CEO Sven Silverson. Today we will cover the Q2 results. I think it was followed by an update to your guidance towards the higher end of it, but of course also this big news of the change in the American reimbursement. So I think you will also cover that. As always, you're very welcome to ask questions in the box down below. You're very welcome to do it in Danish also, and I will try and translate to the best of my abilities. But for now, I think I will hand the call over to you, Sven, where you will run through the results, and then we will take the Q&A in the end.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thanks everyone for dialing in, and thanks for having us here today. Always a pleasure. Now, this morning we published our Q2 results, which show all else equal a strong quarter. We are delivering 6% organic growth and an EBITDA margin of 22%, up from 19% same quarter last year, so 3 percentage point increase, which is largely in line also with our previous communication that we would see a gradually increasing margin. I'll spend a little bit more time on that. We've also, in this context, narrowed our guidance. In the beginning of the year, we set organic growth of 5 to 8%. We're now narrowing that to the upper end of that range, 6 to 8. And we set an EBITDA margin guidance of 19 to 20%, and we are narrowing that now towards the upper end of that range to around 20%. If we look at our three segments, starting with prosthetics and neuroorthotics, 6% growth on top of what was a super strong quarter last year. Q2 last year, we delivered 18% organic growth in this segment. So we're growing 6% here in Q2. More modest performance in bracing and support, 2% growth, and then a super solid quarter in patient care, 9% growth. So looking at the financials as a whole, we are pleased with the progress here in the first half of the year. Now, if we look towards some of the strategic parameters and some of the key themes that we have been progressing in our business over the last 6 months, starting with the Fior & Gentz acquisition that we announced here in Q1. And just to refresh your memory, Fior & Gentz is a company that creates components to build solutions for individuals that have a chronic mobility challenge as a result of stroke or other neuromuscular complications. So, and will rely on a mobility device always. This is these solutions are very much complementary to especially our market access. The individuals that need these solutions, they find their way or are often referred to orthopedic and prosthetic clinics, which are our core customers, as well as obviously our own patient care network. So we are optimistic on our ability to bring these solutions to more individuals. And in a way, this has broadened our approach to chronic mobility. And we see good progress here for the first 6 months of the year, and strong growth, and we are starting to leverage our commercial network to bring these products to more individuals. What was also very nice to report on here in Q2 is new innovation. Innovation has always been a central theme for our company, investing in innovation with the objective of enhancing mobility levels, but also very, very importantly, create value for healthcare systems. And I'd like to tie that back to the news that came out last week, where Medicare, the US healthcare authorities, confirmed that they will provide better or more access for more patients to get access to high quality mobility devices. The Medicare announced their intentions early in the year, and this proposal has now been through a review and has been confirmed with very minimal changes compared to the original proposal. And this is great news for patients, and we very much applaud this change from Medicare, as this will greatly enhance our ability and the industry's ability to provide a much bigger patient group with high quality mobility devices. And this underlines what has always been again a major theme for us, because we also need to provide value for healthcare systems, and the reason that Medicare has decided to do this is because these solutions, they create value for patients and lower the cost over the long term as well. So this is a major change in our industry and marks the biggest change, positive change in reimbursement that we've seen in decades. Another aspect I want to highlight here from Q2 is that we announced our intention to consolidate our global patient care business under the name ForMotion. Over the last 10 years, we've taken steps to invest in owning patient care providers in most of our key markets, and this is another step in our maturity journey to establish our global brand as we take further steps to get, let's say, harvest benefits from being a global player in patient care. So in summary, a solid quarter where we are making good progress on our strategic priorities and delivering in line with the expectations that we've laid out in terms of both how we expect to grow the business and with regards to development in profitability. So with this summary, Michael, I'll hand over back to you for questions.
For some of those questions. Yeah, let's start by this, of course, the reimbursement and the change there. You mentioned earlier this year that you saw a big opportunity in this, and I think you mentioned here that you haven't seen a very large change to that. If I read some of the announcement, there were some demands for the needs to be able to do something, to be able to react. So how are your product portfolio, and has there not been that many changes to this? So what you have said earlier on is that you still have the same feeling after these changes has finally been implemented.
Yes, thanks for the ability to clarify that. Yes, one of the central functionality aspects, if you will, with regards to what type of products or bionic knees will be eligible for reimbursement under these now new reimbursement policy is the concept of stumble recovery, and this was also part as such of the original proposal, and all our bionic knees do have this functionality. So our product portfolio as such is eligible and will be part of this change. Other changes are, we believe, minimal as such, as some changing in wording here and there, and just make the adoption of this new policy change more implementable, if you will.
And there's actually a question: do you need anything to get benefit from these new rules in US? Do you need to do anything from your side on, and do you actually need to increase investments also going forward? Will you need to invest into something to try and get benefit and get higher growth out of this?
The one way to think about these changes and how they will impact both the industry and us as a company is that it goes back to the fact that most of our business year over year is servicing an amputee population that consistently needs to maintain, upgrade, and renew their mobility devices. So Medicare, which has now implemented these changes, accounts for approximately 30% of the market, we estimate. And half of the volume of, let's say, claims or patients that are funded by Medicare are, we estimate, let's say, these high active patients who have historically had access to these types of products. And now the other half, the lower active population, typically the elderly population, has not had access, but now has access. So as that population will come back for maintaining, renewing, upgrading their devices, all is equal, they will get a better mobility device. So we have a strong position in the US. We have relationships with all the major clinical customers. We also operate our own patient care network. We have the products that are needed, both, let's say, the bionic portfolio, but also importantly, a super strong portfolio of high active feet, which will also be, let's say, this expanded coverage will also provide access to those types of products that have historically been restricted. So we have the products, we have the market access, and it will provide, let's say, a significant amount of work for the industry to upgrade patients onto better solutions. But this is not going to happen from one day to the other. It will depend on the replacement cycle and the capacity there is, the clinical capacity there is in the market to serve patients.
So to me, it sounds you don't need to make any major product investments and no major investments in your facility, but of course there will be something. There's also a question here, because sometimes when you need to push something through, sometimes patients need to know it, or is it doctors? So is it doctors or patients that should know these new rules to increase, awareness and sale in the last? And if you can talk a little bit about it, it might help you that your patients go to these clinics runningly. And so just to get a feel of it, do you need to, market it more to patients, or is it doctors who now know that they have these possibilities, and are doctors actually well aware of that? Because, if I know US doctors, they normally want to give the best help. So can you talk a little bit about how you can increase the awareness and which you need to target or invest a little bit into in sales and marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question and a good opportunity to, let's say, remind us about the dynamic in our industry. We always need to convince both payers that ultimately pay for the products, because the vast majority is reimbursed in well-developed healthcare markets. So that's one stakeholder group. The other stakeholder group are the professionals, the prosthetists that build the solutions, and the third stakeholder group are the patients themselves. So historically, our main effort has been towards convincing the professionals that the components that we deliver are high quality components and that they deliver functional benefit for the user. Now, over the last years, what has been a growing trend in our industry, and I believe in also other healthcare industries, is that individuals are much more aware and are much more influential in terms of what products are ultimately used. And this is a key theme for us as a business, to raise awareness among the end users or the patients themselves. And so we need to work on all fronts. We need to drive awareness with patients. We need to drive awareness among the professionals and with a focus on the clinical efficacy of our products. And we need to raise awareness and continue to fight for access and show payers the health economic benefit of providing our solutions to chronic mobility patients.
Yeah, because if I understand it, they need to approve somehow with every single patient. Is that correct? That they documented has this you may say new demand. So it's also, you still need to push, and showing that why it has this bigger benefit. Is that correct?
Yes. That's correct. Every single case needs documentation and needs approval, and every healthcare system is different. In some countries, you'll have a pre-approval systems, and in other countries, you will have to apply for each and every case on an individual basis, and et cetera, et cetera. This is the reality of reimbursement. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of our business in which we conduct in developed healthcare markets, there is a public payment system that provides prosthetic solutions.
And you have the advantage that you are actually servicing these patients very often. So just to make a last question here, if I come in with a not bionic or advanced knee, will I then be eligible to change that under these new rules, or is it only new patients coming in? So just to understand. You have good access to your patients, but can you actually change them to a better need, even if they have a...
Yes, if there is a patient out there that has been classified as now I'm referring to the US system and going back to these changes. If there is a patient out there that has K2 been classified as a K2 patient using principally mechanical solution, there's obviously a set of criteria that need to be documented, etc. But now, as these criteria has been expanded, the vast majority of these lower active patients will have access now to a much more higher quality mobility device. And
then to the hard question on this one: from when do you see significant effect from the new rules? You already implied, of course, 1st September. It's not going to have significant effect on your results this year. But when do you start to see this significant result from this? And do you have you seen large implementation in other countries where you can draw some knowledge from? I think Australia also made some large changes. So just to get an idea on, it's always hard when something changes, but whether you have an idea on looking at other large changes around the world when you start seeing the effect.
Yes, I mean we've seen the general trend. If we look back over the last decades, in most well-developed healthcare systems, is that steps have been taken to broaden access to better mobility devices. And yes, we used the example of Australia here this morning as the NDIS system, as it's called in Australia, implemented to somewhat similar changes as we are seeing now in the US, and that has, let's say, that the result of that has been that gradually more patients are getting access to better mobility devices, and the US is the biggest healthcare market in the world. But it's very important to note that Medicare is only 30% of the market. We'll have to wait and see how the private insurers will react. It's our assumption that they will largely follow Medicare here, because that has been, you could say, the rule of thumb, and that's what they do largely as we look at other categories. So in summary, this means that the US market is growing. The US market is almost half of what we do. We both have strong market share as a product provider, and we also have a large presence as a patient care provider. So this will create some tailwind for our ability to grow the business. But I'm not going to put a number on it as such. But it is I would say, a medium to long term. This will provide some tailwind on the top line, without a doubt.
So I will be a little bit bold and say you have your growth 27 strategy that's looking into the midterm. And on that part, you have 5 to 7% organic growth. And on top of that, you expect also to grow 2 to 3% acquisition-wise. But that is not, of course, going to be impacted. Could you see those being raised? You know, when you made those targets, you might have known about the US, but it was not implemented. So can it impact that period? And I'm not asking you to change your growth projections or targets until here, but could that actually impact in that period, the 27, and maybe move those projections you have on the organic growth a little bit up?
I will answer that, Michael, by going back to sort of the big picture around our growth dynamics. Our midterm targets are 5 to 7, where the main growth themes will be to get more people using bionic products, and this certainly supports that theme. And it has been an underlying assumption for us that reimbursement systems will gradually pay for better access. So this is, I would say, a confirmation that we are moving in the right direction there. That is one theme. Another theme is the emerging markets theme, and now also with the acquisition of Fjord & Gens, that's another growth theme that further enhances our ability to serve more chronic patients. So the themes are largely the same, and I would say that this change has just further underpinned our ability to deliver on that range.
Perfect. Then let's jump a little bit into to specific results, and also looking a little bit, especially the better margins. I think it improved 3% sequentially and 2.5% from Q1. So that was really the first time you showing what you have been saying for a while, that you can optimize your production. Do you expect that better margins can continue to improve in 25? Any specific factor we should be aware of to follow this? So whether this is isolated to this year, or actually the improvement will also roll a little bit into the future also.
Yeah. What we've said around our margin is that we expect to deliver a gradual increase in our operating margin, driven by our ability to generate a healthy organic growth rate. Obviously, the higher we are within our range, all else equally, with more operating leverage, more ability to create margin expansion. Product mix changes, all else equal, the part of our business that has the most favorable growth dynamics drives a positive mix impact on our gross profit margins. And now also, as we are coming out on the other end of what has been a period where we've been challenged with supply chain complications that have disrupted our rhythm in manufacturing, we are now in a place where we have taken down a little bit our capacity. The cost reduction implemented here in Q1, and also some enhanced productivity in our patient care business, which is the main drivers here in Q2. But let's say we expect to continue to be able to deliver on a marginal margin, or let's say a gradual margin increase, and also of course based on the scalability we have in our cost structure, principally on the G&A side.
So it's not exhaustive. You haven't used up all your your abilities to increase that in this one. So we should. It's still also expecting to see some effects in 25. Yeah. Which challenge hit the US growth? Is it the same challenges as in Q1? Do you expect improvement in the second half of the year?
What we need to keep in mind is that in the first half of this year, we're comparing to very strong quarters from prior year. 9% in Q1, 23% in the US, and 11% in Q2 in the US. So let's keep that in mind. I will though say that the performance in the US has been below what we expected for the year, and it is somewhat across the board for all our key product segments. With that being said, there's no change as such in the external environment. The reimbursement is still there, and we don't see any reason to be overly concerned about the US. This is there will always be some fluctuations in demand and fluctuations from quarter to quarter, and we still believe in of course in the potential in the US market, and especially now with these changes in the funding scheme, there's opportunity in what has been and will continue to be our largest single market.
So, and I know it was broad-based, it was both in patient care and was also in bracing, but so I only thought, could you see some effect of someone awaiting new rules so they could apply that to patients, or is that a little bit too much because patients have an immediate need to go and have a solution?
Yeah, it's a good question, and possibly it's very hard to predict. I don't expect it to be a main thing here in the first half of the year, that there's some people are waiting, because as you mentioned, it's a pretty important sort of aspect to maintain your mobility device. What I didn't mention, there was some on the bracing side, this what we mentioned here in Q1, this cyber attack that impacted one of the biggest insurance payment providers, that has impacted some of our customers' ability to process claims. That still has some little bit of an lingering effect here in Q2 as one of these external topics, and we do expect better performance here in bracing here in the US in the latter half of the year.
And you exactly mentioned that it was a very high comparison base. That gets easier in the second year. So the question is here, with your visibility and easier comparison base, what will only bring you to the low end of your new growth guidance? And you had 5 to 8, now you have 6 to 8. You delivered 6%. And if I understand it correctly, it seems you have a little bit easier comparison base in the second half versus the first half. So the question is here, is there something out there that should bring you to the 6%, you might say, or the low end, thinking you have good momentum and you actually have a easier comparison base in the second half?
Yeah, the momentum has been good, and we're halfway into the year. There's still, as always, there will things that will be better than what we expect. There will be things that worse than we expect. That's just the way business is, and since we still have 6 months to go, it was our decision to, let's say, to have a range that can accommodate some fluctuation. But I mean, the general communication has been that we have good momentum, and there are no structural changes or anything that we haven't talked about or flagged.
Perfect. And I will finish with what I thought about. You consolidate your patient care into one brand. Any reasons for that? Is it an Excel sheet? Is it a branding? Or can you actually see some cost savings, or maybe better do the same all over the world, benchmarking and so on? A little bit thoughts about why you're doing that. It always, for an analyst, some strategy changes. Why are you actually doing this? So is there any cost advantages in the future, or actually maybe better sales benchmarking or something like that?
It's been 10 years since we took the first step into also being a company that provides patient care. And in our patient care business, we serve the people that need our products. And we have built up a business where we've acquired very good companies in many of our core markets. And we have been making progress on taking certain steps to consolidate our patient care platform, making sure we create the right synergies. But this is just another maturity step where we're deciding to gradually consolidate our business under a single brand identity, such that we are more consistent in our messaging around what we stand for as a patient care provider. And also tying back to what I mentioned earlier, there is a growing theme in our industry that patients are more aware about what options are out there, and there are some network effects or network synergies, if you will, in operating under a single identity, as such, how we communicate, how we drive our digital marketing efforts, how we message around what we stand for in patient care, because we are super ambitious around differentiating our offering in the form of offering the best possible patient care out there, and that is what ForMotion will stand for.
Perfect. That was the last question. I'll let you off the hook, Sven, and you can go back and enjoy what I think maybe will be a holiday after your reporting. So Absolutely. Thank you to you, Sven, and thank you to everybody listening in.
Thank you so much for having us. Always a pleasure. Take care.